What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. I am really excited for this one, because today I'm joined by one of my very good friends, Sophie. And today we are basically here to talk about how the travel restrictions of COVID-19 affected people. Because we'll start with a bit of background, really. You're not from England, are you?
I'm French.
Exactly. So you're like, England is your home, obviously,
Yeah.
but like you haven't been able to go see family in a year.
Over a year, it's about 18 months now.
Oh, really? So yeah. So basically, we're just here today to talk about how we feel like the travel restrictions have affected people. So my first question is, when was the last time you were at home or in France or whatever way you want to describe
It
it?
was just before the lockdown. It was beginning of March 2020.
Oh yeah.
And it was just for 3-4 days.
I remember this now. We're having this conversation because that leads me nicely onto my second question. Actually, how would you have coped if, like, the lockdown had come in a week earlier and you would have been stuck at home or in France or whatever word you want to use?
It would have been very difficult because I wouldn't have seen Chloe, my daughter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have seen my partner. I wouldn't have been able to go to work.
Yeah, yeah.
That would have been a big problem. But on the other side, I would have spent lots of time with my dad. I would have seen my brother and
Yeah.
nieces, my sister-in-law.
So I suppose it's one of those where it's sort of, it would give it in one sense but take it in another. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yes,
Like,
it was still good that I managed to come home in England before lockdown.
yeah, like, what had you put anything in place in case you didn't come home?
I thought maybe I was gonna try to come back illegally, like some people did.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't have been able. My dad would have kept me for as long as necessary, but I think I would have missed England too much
Fair
and
enough.
being here in my own home.
Fair enough. But, like, you didn't have the way. I'll rephrase that question. Say the lockdown got announced the week before.
Yeah.
Did you have anything in place if, like, you were forced to stay there? Not really.
No, not really actually. No, because I was still thinking it will happen, but not just now. I've still got a few days. And I think I came here back to England the 13th of March.
And we went
And
into
when
lockdown
lockdown
on the
16
18th.
or
On the
18th, yeah,
18th.
yeah.
I remember that quite specifically now. Yeah. So it wasn't. But were
Gamble.
you one of those that were like, "Oh, this will pass"? Like,
It was more I thought we're gonna go in lockdown. If I want to see my dad, I've got to go now, just in case it takes a long time.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm really pleased I did it.
Yeah, I understand. So how does it actually feel, and do you think it is the right thing to be not allowed to travel? Like, we're allowed to travel now. We should say that, really.
Yeah,
Like, but we were talking about this morning, weren't we?
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you want to travel, you have to self-isolate when you come back.
We
right?
did until today. Steve said now France will be okay.
Okay.
But we're still gonna have to have that test. I can't remember what it's called now. The
Lateral
test.
flow?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
So you need a clean one of them to come
Yeah.
into France and come back, or is it
Yes.
just to
it's-
go in?
No, it's both way, and it's important that we've been fully vaccinated, which we've both been now, so that's fine.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
How, in your mind, do you think that the government did the right thing, closing down borders and stuff?
I think they did do the right thing. It probably would have been better if they did it sooner.
Yeah.
But, it was the first time for everybody. Nobody went through that before.
I was gonna say, it's not like there's a handbook of
No.
this is how to deal with a pandemic.
No.
So yeah, I've said this all along.
Yeah, I
But,
think they
like,
did the best with what they knew at the time. They did for the best.
So, what are some things you have missed? And I want to take family out of this because that's obvious. If you haven't missed family, then do you know what I
Something
mean?
wrong.
Like, that's a bit obvious. What are some things you missed about not being able to go to France?
I miss the food.
French
I miss,
cuisine.
the specific French cuisine. I
Yeah.
really missed their chocolate eclair with chocolate cream in it.
Yes, as someone that used to go to France a lot, I could vouch for that. They are very nice.
They
But
are.
yeah, like obviously family is obviously your main
Yes,
thing.
family is really what I miss the most. But I also miss the home, the house itself where I grew up.
Okay.
Because you get habits there, you recognize the smell and everything else. You know the garden by heart, and I haven't been able to see that for 18 months now, and
Oh,
I
wow.
miss that. I miss that. My dad is telling me what he's doing in the garden. You try to picture it, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, is it?
No.
So we're sort of gonna have a more general conversation now. How do you think France has uh, handled COVID, and how do you think England has handled it? In the sense of, do you think there's anything that they can learn from each other? Do you think there's anything that we did that they didn't that they should have, or vice versa?
Definitely, I think both countries can learn from the other. France closed the border a lot quicker and they were a lot stricter. For example, if you wanted to go to the supermarket, you needed a form that you had to tick.
Well,
And
very similar to I told you about one of my carers.
yeah,
They had a bit of paper in their car
Yeah.
that said, "Oh, I'm a carer." Like,
Yeah.
Is it similar to that?
it's very similar to that, but there was very strict rule even on how you fill it up. And the police did stop you. My brother got stopped once and he filled up his form with a pencil, not a pen. And they told him it wasn't valid and they were allowed to fine him.
Oh, really?
They only gave him a warning, but they could have. They were very, very strict. Or how far from your home you were going shopping. Only once a week was allowed. If you forgot something, you forgot something. You didn't have only one of these from once a week.
Fair enough. Do you think England could have benefited from something like that?
We could have done with being stricter. I think what England did well, maybe we were a bit slow at the beginning, but if we think, for example, now with the vaccine, I think we're one of the countries who's done the best.
Because we will both say we are. This is why we're sitting so close together. I had a COVID test before I came round, but also we are both fully vaccinated.
Yes, we
so
are.
I'm very not like I'm trying to think of the word. Like I'm not blasé about it, but I'm like not as fearful now.
No.
Does that make sense?
And we're still cautious. We're outside, we're not inside
This is
the
why we're
house.
outside, so we apologise for any traffic noise and also brightness, which I realised we didn't take into account when we did
No,
this.
that's true.
But oh well, like I feel like the content's more important than seeing
That's
us, sort
good.
of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's true.
But other than that, was there anything the two countries did the same that was wrong or right?
I mean, you did feel like you were losing a lot of freedom because you couldn't see family and friends. It was the same back home. You weren't allowed to hug the people close to you, etc. You had the same system as bubble, so all that works exactly in the same way, which
So,
is
like
good.
for example, your dad lives in France, right?
Yeah.
So he could be in the same bubble as your brother.
That's it. He was in the same bubble as my younger brother, who was as well the person who could take him to the doctor if he needed to, help him to with the shopping.
Yeah, yeah.
So that
So,
was
like,
good.
It's very similar to myself. Like my mum was in my bubble,
Yeah.
and she was the only person that could do that sort of stuff for me. So I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
But as we say, is there anything you think? We've said that both England and France have done things like differently, but is there anything that, say we, God forbid, we go into another lockdown?
Yeah.
Is there anything you would take from France and say to England, you should do this?
Definitely close the border right away. Each time we spend too much time thinking, oh, we'll give it another week, we'll see how many cases. Where France, like a lot of other countries, Germany and
New Zealand.
New Zealand, they were very strict from day one, close the border.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. How obviously we live in a great time for modern technology and stuff,
You know?
and because your family obviously live in another country, I assume modern technology has been something you've used a lot to communicate with them.
A lot more. My dad obviously is an elderly man, he's in his 80s. He doesn't have all the modern technology, but my brother and his family do. So we've been able to have video chat, which is a lot better. You can see him, I can see him aging, same
Fair
for
enough.
him. But it's really nice because he make it a bit closer to
And
home.
almost like a bit, normal's the wrong word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it is. You feel closer to them because you can see them than just having a conversation over the phone twice a week.
Yeah. So, like, do you think you would have coped not seeing your family if modern technology wasn't a thing?
It definitely would have been a lot harder. We would have to restart writing letters. We can't even send picture without modern technology because you couldn't have printed
No,
your
this
picture.
is true.
So no, I'm really grateful for it because at least it allowed me to see they were doing fine, you know.
And I suppose it's like someone can tell you they're doing fine, but to see it with your own eyes obviously takes a weight off your own
Yeah,
shoulders.
yeah.
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean there. Like, even for me, I have a lot of friends that live on their own, so being able to FaceTime a couple of times a week and see that they're okay was like, oh, that's a relief.
I think it's important for her mental health as well, you know.
Yeah, that was the other thing that I was going to say. Do you think that helped mental health in any way?
Definitely. I mean, where I'm concerned, I know it was a great help to me because I felt like I was still part of their life. Like when my niece turned 3 and she started school, I missed all that, but I was still a little bit part of it because
Yeah,
my
yeah,
brother
'cause you-
could film it and
And you
show
could
me.
send pictures
Yes,
and stuff like that.
yes.
Yeah, I totally understand. So, like, my final question, and again, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. Like, I really appreciate it. And, like, yeah. But what are some things you're looking forward to doing when restrictions are fully lifted in France, restrictions are fully lifted in England, and you can go home again?
I can be honest, I can't wait for that day where I'm gonna pass the border and then we're getting closer to my dad. And then maybe 10 minutes before we arrive, we let him know we're home. And then he come down the stairs, obviously he's an elderly gentleman, so it takes him a while. And then I'm gonna give him big, big hug, probably squash him because he's quite frail nowadays, you know. I can't wait that feeling of holding him in my arms. And my brother and his family, I can't wait to see them all and smell the hair that I grew up in and see the house I grew up in.
I just think for you, family's a big part for you.
They are.
And to not have seen that must have been very hard. This is one time where I feel very lucky to have been part of families and still be in the same country. Like, I couldn't have done it, so I do take my hat off to you for that one.
It's difficult, but I was lucky because I've got my English family. I've got
Yeah,
my
yeah,
partner,
yeah,
my
yeah.
child.
I understand.
And it did help to know that I still got people you genuinely care and love, which were close to you. But yes,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't wait for that hug.
I understand. Okay, again, I want to say thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Like, I can't say thank you enough. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe this video, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, bye.
Thank you.